What's up, beautiful people?
Hey,
Welcome
guys.
back to the podcast.
Woo.
It's been a couple of weeks because we took off for 4th of July weekend, which was much needed. We've been traveling a ton lately, and so we came back home for, a couple of days.
A couple days
But
here and there.
if you're listening to this, we're in the West Coast right now. We're filming this ahead of time, actually.
Yeah.
But we're going to see my dad in Northern California and doing a couple of fun little collabs along the way in Sedona, Arizona, and in Zion, and just with some other big families, which is really fun for us. And
Yeah, but we needed to be back for a few days anyways because we're working on some of the house stuff.
building a house that's taking 95 billion years, it feels like.
Been a whole thing.
Yes. But we're getting closer. We're getting those steps taken care of, one step at a time. And hopefully we'll have a house that we can live in by the holidays.
Hopefully.
Is my
the kids keep
prayer.
asking, when do we get to move in?
Someday. We were ordering cabinets, and I told the guy, I was like, I would really love to be in by Thanksgiving. And he kind of just gave me this nervous laugh that made me feel so
I don't
unsettled.
think he knows our timeline, though.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just that you have to expect a lot of delays.
Yes.
And so I think that nobody really knows how long these things are going to take.
Yeah,
But, but we're making some progress, so I'm thankful for that.
But speaking of kind of living a crazy, hectic life, we,
Speaking of,
we're very busy people a lot of the time. Like, especially this summer, we kind of decided we're not going to live in the RV at all during the summer for a lot of reasons. Like, it can't keep up with the heat, really, and there are 9 of us because Reese is home for a lot of the summer.
yeah,
So,
which has been so good. I'm glad that we at least get to all be together, even if it's chaos and even if we're like going all these different directions. We're just making an adventure out of it. And
yes.
yeah, but I'm so looking forward to the house being done and coming back this fall, settling in, getting to decorate, getting to just be at home. And I really want to do a lot of cooking in the new kitchen. That's like the thing that I keep thinking about. Like, I want to cook like a bunch of just delicious meals this fall with the kids. And so that's the thing that's getting me through.
Getting through just the hope of what comes next.
Yeah.
But, with all the business, a lot of people ask us, like, how do you invest in your marriage? You're traveling all the time. You're living in an RV with 7 kids. You just released a book. You're like, talking about that. You're vlogging. You're doing all kinds of things music wise. And just, we have a lot of irons in the fire, right?
Yeah, which
And
is
so
how we've always kind of done it. But I feel like it's been amplified in this season.
it's been amplified. Yeah.
And it's a little crazy.
Yeah. So the question people are asking is, can you talk about how you really prioritize your marriage in the midst of having 7 kids and all the craziness that comes with that, but then also having a pretty busy schedule. And I think that a lot of people have busier schedules than we do. Maybe not a lot of people. Maybe a few people have
But I think
busier schedules.
most people know that feeling of just having so much, juggling so many things. If you're a parent and you're married and you're working, or even if you're staying at home, which is work, which is more work in my opinion, because you're doing all the things for all the people all the time.
Extracurricular activities, serving at your church or wherever you serve or give your time.
It's just a lot. I think people understand that the modern schedule that people have is usually very busy, and it takes a lot of intentionality to slow down.
Yeah. So we wanted to give you guys some tips / just, I guess, insight. We've been married 19 years now, and we're together before that for 2. So all in all, 21 years together. We'll be, hopefully renewing our vows for our 20th anniversary this coming year in Italy. Fingers crossed.
As he's saying, I would love that. I know a lot of people that are going to Italy this year.
Yes.
Things have kind of opened back up, and people are resuming travel. That's the place that I'm seeing most people going to, and it makes me very excited about the possibility of being able to go next year as well.
Yeah, I think so. To start with, how we prioritize our marriage, she kind of hit it on the head. Like, the slowing down piece I would just say, learning to communicate with your partner, your spouse, in a way that is how they communicate.
Yeah.
So like knowing their language, knowing their personality, knowing how they receive love and give love. And for you, you're more introverted. You tend to recharge by relaxing and just resting,
Quiet
not
times,
with
yeah.
people, but like having, slowing down and all that, which is very different from me. I tend to recharge by doing things. So, one of the ways that we prioritize is that give and take of knowing how you're built, how I'm built.
Yeah.
When I guess we were maybe 10 years married, I wrote an article. I may revise and revive the article, but it was called Help, I Married an Introvert. And the idea was sort of tongue in cheek, like she is teaching me to rest and I'm teaching her to
let loose a little bit.
Yeah. I'm like, what's the best way to say this? Yeah. To like really live more spur of the moment and like go do things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with otherwise.
Yeah. It's that there's this ongoing challenge I think that we have because we are so opposite. And I know a lot of married couples are opposites. You hear that phrase, opposites attract. Not always. I mean, there are a lot of people I think that are very similar, but I think that it can be a huge benefit to be married to someone who is more of your opposite because you can really balance each other out and you can really speak into the areas where the other person maybe isn't as strong. And so together you both have these different areas that you're both really strong in. And so if you can learn to communicate well and learn to value and prioritize the differences that you have and how to meet those needs and how to really be there for each other, then you can really be a powerhouse because you really are so much stronger in that way. But it takes a lot of intentionality.
It takes a lot of intentionality and it takes a lot of like embracing selflessness.
Yeah.
Like not being your natural self, which we're all naturally selfish people in general. Like, so for me, like I would not be healthy if I just was constantly being the way that I naturally prefer.
If you were always going and never
and so
slowing down.
You're making me a healthier version of myself. Being married to you is making me stronger because you encourage me, and sometimes even force, but not in like a mean way, but like just to slow down, to breathe, to rest, to take a nap.
Yeah, I think there've been a couple of times where I'm like, I think you need a nap. And you're like, I can't sleep. And I'm like, you should try because you're burning out. You're like,
Well, I say a lot, find rest or rest will find you. Yeah. And I'm not good at finding the rest. And so like, I'll like even this summer, like I'll go. And then I'm just exhausted. So we're trying to build in, even like on vacation, like we're learning to, I know that if we have a 5-day vacation and I pack all 5 days to the brim, which would be my way of doing it.
Which we've done before.
And we have done it.
Yeah.
We're like, it's just not going to go well. So like one way that I prioritize us is to have maybe 2 out of the 5 days or just rest days where there's no agenda. Maybe we still go do something, but it's just we're able to connect. We're able to talk. We're able to process. What did we do yesterday? And I think that that's helped a lot, but it also gives us like the opportunity to say, hey, you want to go have a date night?
Yeah.
Like we have been on the road for over a month now and we still get to go out, have our date night, make sure we're investing in us all along the way. Cause otherwise we can be going so hard and so fast that like we forget to connect.
That goes back to the intentionality because, it is really easy to just let life take over, especially if you have kids and you've got that busy schedule to not prioritize time together. And it's like, you think like, well, we're seeing each other, we're talking to each other, we're handling all these things, but there's something about making that time on a consistent basis, whether that's once a week or every other week.
Yeah.
Sometimes, some people will say once a month. I feel like once a month is not enough for us.
I don't know
Maybe
that once
for
a month
some
is enough
people.
for anybody.
But
To have a date night, like a weekly, like check in, a weekly, like this is us. We're the team.
Yeah.
We're the partners. We're the friends.
yeah, it's got to be consistent for sure. And I think we found that if we can manage to do once a week, that generally is the sweet spot for us, where we stay feeling connected, and that's enough time for us to be able to really check in and see how we're doing. There's a lot that happens even in just 1 week, and so I feel like you need that time on a weekly basis to kinda,
And that's looked a lot different over the years for us, because like, one of the things we had to really get creative with, especially early on, is that we didn't have any money to go on date nights. Like, we would be like, what are we going to do for date night? It's at least $50 to hire a babysitter for us early on. Now, luckily, we have 5 teenagers at home.
They are the babysitters.
We don't have to pay babysitters anymore, thank God. But early on, a lot of our date nights would look like we're just going to put the kids to bed, and we're going to shut off our phones, and I'll cook a meal, and I'll light some candles or something.
He was really good about doing this, and you still do this from time to time. But that was a pretty normal way for us to do date nights. Would be date nights in, because we did have younger kids, so they would go to bed by 7:30 or 8, and then we could have that dinner. Like, he's such a great cook, and I really appreciate that about him.
Tell me
so
more.
He would put that to good use and make a steak and salad or something like that.
There's a lot of steak and salad, a lot of Caesar salad and steak. Yeah.
But it was so nice. Just that being able to have that time to connect. And in some ways I like that even more, because then you're eliminating some of the stress of like having to get ready and drive somewhere, and maybe there's traffic and all of that.
There was a season where we would just pop popcorn and get a bottle of $2 Chuck from Trader Joe's, because it's wine, so you feel bougie, but it's only $2, which you can't.
Trader Joe's wine's pretty decent.
It's not too bad, and then we just sit on the couch and have some popcorn, watch a show, drink a little, little dark, and then like maybe I would massage you or something like that, and I think those have been for me. Those are some of the best memories I have. Or particularly, I mean, we got into a real rhythm doing that in St. Louis.
That's exactly what came to my mind.
Yeah.
Particularly because I was pregnant with Ethan at the time.
Yes.
And one of those Facebook memories just popped up where I couldn't like reach my toes very well at that point in my pregnancy. And Steven offered to give me a pedicure, which was the sweetest thing ever. And I remember snapping a photo of him doing it, because I thought it was so sweet. I wanted to brag on him. But
I'm sure it was the worst pedicure you've ever had.
I do remember thinking,
as pedicures go,
it was the thought that counts.
I only think because I did it again. So this is the other piece of it, is like, you've got a night where you do date night, and we try to do that once a week. We try to have a night away, just the two of us, once a month at least. And then, once a quarter, we'll do like a couple nights, maybe 3 nights, 2 nights, something like that, where we go somewhere.
That's been easier to do as the kids have gotten older.
Yes.
I know it's really hard when you just have a bunch of littles at home to do that. And different people have different support systems. Sometimes the grandparents live really close.
Right.
We had a lot of different friends who had grandparents who lived really close, and so they would constantly take the kids. And I remember, especially when we were in St. Louis, we were so far from family. And I remember that all the more just making me miss my family, because we are really close knit.
Yeah.
But they weren't close. They were in Texas, we were in St. Louis. So sometimes that can be more of a challenge. I know we didn't necessarily get away as much, but that's why we would prioritize the times when the kids would go to bed. And that's so much easier to do when the kids are younger, because when they're teenagers, that's the time when they want to stay up, and they go to bed after you, but they want to stay up and they want to talk. And when you're wanting to connect with your teens, that really is the time. It's
you meet them
10:30 at night, and they're ready to have some deep discussions with you, and you're like, I'm really ready for bed at this point. But I just feel like those moments are just so, so special. Like, you don't want to pass up on those opportunities, because your kids a lot of times.
That's what they're going to remember.
Yeah, that's what they're going to remember. And you really got to meet your kids where they are. And so
at the same time, though, I think, talking about here's the tricks or whatever, we have had to recognize that is when our kids like to connect, which also happens to be when we like to connect. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we've had to start doing is, we know this about ourselves, we know this about our kids, is to communicate with our children what we need. So, it may be like, hey guys, we start telling them like at 5:00, hey guys, tonight's going to be an earlier night. We're just going to have some time, for mom and me to hang out in the bedroom and, talk or whatever. So we're not going to be hanging out or watching a show or whatever that might be. There's a lot of stuff you can do in the bedroom after the kids go to bed.
Oh my gosh.
Play Uno.
Yeah. Card games, all sorts of stuff.
Monopoly.
But yeah, I do think that being able to tell the kids, like, most evenings, we're just hanging out as a big family. Yeah. We're enjoying time together. We're
having dinner, sure that watching shows.
Yeah. And so to be able to tell the kids once or twice a week, hey, this is going to be an earlier evening. Dad and I are going to watch a show. We've got some plans.
And they may know also, because I'll have the massage table set up or something like that. A couple of years ago.
Have you explained? Oh, okay.
So I bought Amanda, was it Valentine's Day, right?
It was.
Yeah. I bought her a massage table.
He did.
Just because that's historically been one of her greatest love languages, is having massage. She's got a back condition, which I don't know that we've talked about on the podcast, but me massaging her is one of the most tangible ways that I can show her that I love her, and that and so then I bought her this massage table, so the kids generally know, like, oh, the massage table's up. Like,
I don't think you generally pull it out before.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, it's not like anything nefarious is happening. Like,
no, I just think it's usually they know because we're communicating it, not because there's, the massage table's up. I don't think that's generally how it goes, but
it depends. Sometimes I'll pull it out as a signal.
If the kids are like in our bed talking and you're like, I'm going to massage your mom. So, no, actually that kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about, is like different people's love languages.
Yeah.
And that, we are opposites in a lot of ways, and giving and receiving love is one of those things that people that varies by person, right? And also varies by the season that you're in, because there are things that really meant a lot to me, probably the most to me, when the kids were younger, and we were in different seasons of life, that maybe aren't my top priority now.
Right.
The physical touch has been one that for me I think has been really big, because like Stephen said, like I tend to be able to relax and rest most. I think I carry a lot of stress in my body. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's a hug or it's a shoulder massage or it's a real massage, those things really help me to actually just let go and release the stress. And I know we've talked about it before, but I do tend to get migraines that I think are related to stress. Mm-hmm. So if we've been really busy, and I can feel it in my body, if we're pushing the schedule several days in a row and I feel like I'm unable to relax for an extended period of time, that's when I feel like those migraines come on. And I think that was around the time that we recognized that Stephen, for Valentine's Day, ended up surprising me by getting a legit massage table. Yeah. And I just thought that was incredible, because it was like you were so in tune with what I needed at the time. And I don't think I would have ever asked for something like that. But knowing how much that can mean to me and really help me.
And I mean, it's one of those things that, like, I know that means a ton to you. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we do get really busy. Yeah. And so having that like rhythm of saying, okay, we're going to drop everything, because you really can't fully experience a massage when you're working on your computer or like, even watching a show necessarily. Like it's just a different kind of thing. Like there's sort of like intentional, like healing massage. And then there's sort of like the passive, like we're just hanging out massage, And we found that like the massage that involved a total relaxation of the mind, the body and all that was helping you more. Right.
Yeah.
So that sort of saying, okay, this is the space that you're going to go and like, I'm going to work on you and make sure that the next day is a better, like you sleep better tonight, you feel better, you know, tomorrow.
It really does help to release stress.
Yeah.
Which was, I think, a big one for me that I was, especially like in those middle years with the kids and moving, and Lincoln was going through brain surgeries, and there was just so much. And I felt like I was having the hardest time learning how to decompress and how to let go of that stress.
Yeah.
And then when the migraines came, it was really challenging.
Yeah.
So that was huge for me.
And you talk about prioritizing that, right? So like, we're busy people, and we knew that's what needed to happen. I knew that was one of the best ways that I could love her, but you know, we do work a lot. We do like to, you know, sometimes we can just get caught up. So there was something that I did that it felt really weird to me. And I think it felt weirder for you knowing that I had to do this. Was I actually set an event in my calendar, like an alarm that would go off to remind me, just so that we didn't get to midnight, you know, where I'm no good for anything as far as massaging goes. And then we realized that we didn't take care of that. So from a love language perspective, you know, I think there's sort of this idealistic side of me that's like, no, it should just spring up organically and naturally and should happen as an overflow of my undying affection for my wife. And it's there for sure. But there's also sort of like planned intentionality that sort of has to happen sometimes if you're truly going to prioritize each other. And that for me was a way that I could prioritize speaking your love language, and planned intentionality, scheduled intentionality to make sure that works, you know.
And that is so true, because being intentional, like you have to be intentional, because life does get crazy and you are busy or you're tired. And it's so hard to keep the first things first a lot of times. And so you do have to be intentional. What are you smiling about?
We were just, so for her birthday, which by the way, she just had a birthday. Happy birthday. It's a couple weeks ago now. She wanted to watch Fun with Dick and Jane. And
well, you know, never seen
it's one of the best movies. Yeah, it's so funny. It's great. But there's this moment in Fun with Dick and Jane that we were rolling laughing because the kids had never seen it. I forgot. You know, they're all teenagers, so I think at this point it was okay for them to be in on this. But she says, we should have sex on Saturday.
He's like, I'll get the Starbucks sampler.
I'll get the Starbucks sampler.
Like, I'm going to pick up some candles.
It's like hilarious because like sometimes parenting is like that, you know? Sometimes being married is like that, where your life is nuts and you have to schedule, you know, prioritizing each other. Yeah. Like, I don't know that we've ever had to.
We don't have to schedule that.
We don't have to schedule that. But it's a funny example.
Prioritizing each other is something that needs to be done intentionally because life is crazy.
Yes.
And if you don't prioritize it and be intentional with it, it's just not going to happen. And then you're going to get years down the line and look at each other and think, wow, we've drifted so far apart.
Yes.
And there have been times where we've done this really well. And I feel like we've been so connected and we've been really meeting each other's needs and listening well. And then there are times where we haven't done it well. And I felt that disconnect, you know, and we've had to come back to each other and be like, wow, we've been so disconnected lately. We've had all these other things kind of take charge in our life and we need to get back on course. So
I think having those scheduled date nights where we sometimes, you know, we'll say we're not going to talk about the kids tonight, you know, or we'll have those scheduled date nights and we say, you know, this is like dream planning. You know, there have been several seasons in our life where we've just set aside a date night and just said, what do we want our life to look like in 5 years? What do we want our life to look like in a year? You know, what are your goals for this year? Where do you want to see us in 5 years? And so there's sort of like each date night can have its own purpose. And you can plan that out. Sometimes we just have fun. You know, we go on date nights and we're like, we're not going to talk about anything.
Yeah.
We're just going to have fun, you know?
Because especially when you're like driven people or you've got goals or it's a season where you're having to really hustle.
You naturally talk about that all the time anyway.
Yeah, you can. And it can take over. And I think it's important to remember, like, there are times where you should just turn it all off and just be together and just do something that is just fun, relaxing, not talk about the kids, not talk about work, not talk about life, and just enjoy spending time together, you know?
Yeah. Let's take a quick break to thank our sponsor for today's episode, BetterHelp.
You guys know that life is hectic sometimes, especially when you are living in an RV for several months with all of your kids.
Do you know what's been a lifesaver? BetterHelp. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online and available worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist from wherever you are.
Yeah, and you can schedule weekly or phone sessions so you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. And getting therapy every week is as easy as a few clicks on your laptop or phone.
It's been so great, guys. We are big fans, especially since we're always on the go. It's nice to have an option to just chat with a therapist or take a call every now and then. But the best part is it is way more affordable than traditional offline therapy.
And they have a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off of your first month at betterhelp.com/BEAUT. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/BEAUT.
And now back to the show. I think one of the best things that we do is, you know, we're totally cool with just like our date night sometimes can just be go see a movie and then go eat at a great restaurant. And then, you know, at the restaurant, we can talk about the movie or we can talk about anything else in life, but we're sharing a couple things. Like there are things that we really both enjoy a lot, which are great food, you know, travel, and I love movies. So I
think that's your number one love language.
She speaks my language really well. Like as massages are to her, movies are to me. Yeah. So a lot of that, and it's just easy because there's always something new and you don't have to necessarily think up like, what should we do now? You know, but there's also like, let's go on a hike, you know, or let's go kayaking or, you know,
changing it up
we're constantly trying to change things up to make it interesting so we don't get into a rut.
I think doing things that involve adventure together can be really good. It can be challenging sometimes, like learning to kayak together. That was a little challenging at first, but you got the hang of it really quickly and you were in the back steering. So I feel like that helped us.
Yeah. Because I had done a lot of camping and hiking and Boy Scouting and stuff as a kid. So that's like really my big love language is the outdoors and seeing beautiful places and beautiful things. And so when we get to go do that, that means a lot to me and to you because it's quality time. Yeah. Which I would say quality time is probably your biggest love language.
I think so.
And so I love that we can get creative about what that looks like. Those things are a bigger time commitment. To drive an hour and a half to a waterfall and hike to it takes a little more planning. You can't necessarily just like do it on a whim.
Quality time at home.
But quality time at home is still quality time. Yeah. And that's where I can kind of come in and be like, oh yeah, you would really like to have quality time
by resting together.
Resting together, you know. And I think that we do a good bit of both. And over the years, as you exercise that sort of selfless love giving, you learn to receive love in the same way that you're giving it. So like I used to not like to just lay in bed all day, you know.
All day?
I mean, like as an intentional form of loving each other. You know what I mean?
When have we ever had the time to lay in bed all day?
But okay, you know what I mean?
But I do know what you mean. But to clarify for them, resting, like we said, resting for Stephen is hard. So if we lay in bed for 2 hours in the morning, he'll feel like we've laid in bed all day.
That's it. Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Yeah. So that whole phrase of like we wasted the day away. We laid in bed all day.
Yes.
That's very
true,
very fair. Being intentional.
Yes.
Right?
It's very hard for me to lay in bed in the morning.
It's hard for you to not be doing something.
I wake up and I stare at the ceiling and I'm like, I could be working out right now or I could be, you know, whatever. But then sometimes like I actually fall back asleep and I get really good rest and then I get to wake up next to you, which I do love waking up next to you. That's my favorite thing on earth is like, you know,
having
comment down below. Are you the big spoon or the little spoon? Do you like being the big spoon or the little spoon? I really like both.
I do think slow mornings, you know, where you can wake up and just get some coffee and sit on the porch together, talk, do a devotional together. That's something we love to do too. That really fills my tank is when we're praying together, we're doing devotionals together, reading our Bible together. Having those slow mornings are, I think, my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. I have grown to love them. Even if it's that I go work out and then I come back and then I have those slow mornings with you. I really do I like having a some slow time with you.
As long as you get your fast time in first.
Well, I feel that I can focus better and I'm in a better mood when I do work out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because that's an investment in me, but it's also like, it may be both like physical and psychological, but like whenever I work out, I feel like I am giving you the best version of myself.
Yeah. And that goes back, that goes back to being intentional too, because like, I know that you need that time. And so making sure that he gets that pretty much every day. On Sundays, a lot of times we don't work out, but pretty much every other day he goes to the gym, and something that we're so proud of you, because he's lost a lot of weight and he's like been very intentional about getting healthy and fit. And so
it's a lot of hard work. And I would say that you have been so supportive of me in doing that. And that does mean a lot, because I think especially early on in our marriage, when we had little kids at home, it felt like I was robbing you. You would never have said that as much, but like, I'm working all day, every day, like.
Yeah. And then you come home and the kids want to see you. And
So like, to feel that I have the support from my family to be able to invest in my own health, both mentally and physically, by doing the workout and doing all that, that really means a ton to me.
Yeah.
Because it does allow me to give my best version of myself to you guys, which is really important. And for me to be able to do that for the long haul.
And that's true though, because if you're not loving yourself well, you're not going to be able to love your spouse well. And so that's something that you have to be intentional about as well, and self-care can look so different for so many different people. Going to the gym is a big way for you to practice self-care. Yeah,
because I mean, how else am I going to carry you up the stairs on our 50th wedding anniversary? Like, I need to be able to do that. Like, that's important to me.
Yeah. Whereas sleeping in for me, like, and people are different. Steven could get 4 or 5, probably 5 hours of sleep, and you're like, I'm good,
It
what
depends.
are we going to do for the next 13 hours until the sun goes down? And for me, I'm like, if I have 9 hours of sleep, even 10, I feel good.
I think your perfect day is a
sleeping in
14-hour sleep.
14. I don't think I could sleep 14 hours. But some people just need more sleep. And so that is definitely something that really can help me, especially if we've had a really busy week.
Yeah.
Being able to sleep in on the weekends or, just whenever we can is really helpful. And also it helps that you have teenagers that also want to sleep in. We only have 2 younger kids now, and both of them are pretty good sleepers as well. We've never had kids that get up at like 5:30 or 6. I've heard from friends that say that their kids get up really early, and I feel like that would have been really tough on me.
Yeah,
our kids will sleep till 8 o'clock.
Yeah, they'll sleep a lot later than that now.
Our teens will sleep till noon now.
We let them. So that's kind of a roundabout way of saying you prioritize each other, and you prioritize each other's love language. So resting for you is a love language that I have learned to prioritize. And in doing so, it's actually made me a better version of me.
Yeah.
Right? And for you, prioritizing the pace with which I tend to thrive best, which I would say right now, this season is one of those seasons. We're traveling a ton. We're doing a lot of things. You may not naturally feel compelled to live that pace.
Yeah, it's
right?
a bit fast.
But I feel so loved by you allowing us to do that for this season.
Right.
And we both know it's not going to be this way forever.
Right. It's a season.
It's not sustainable to try to go the way we are. But it's an adventure.
Yeah.
And I feel so loved and so cherished by you that you said, yeah, let's go for it, And obviously there's give and take even in the midst of that.
Sure.
Right. But I think you've done such a great job of that. So what we're saying is, as you prioritize the other person, you get to become a better version of yourself as well. Yeah. And then that really feeds the marriage, and it feeds the friendship, and it feeds that relationship to be stronger, because both of you are both having your needs met and meeting the other person's needs.
Yeah. And there's something to say
that's fulfilling,
about,
you know?
Yeah. There's something to say about loving your spouse exactly how they are, right? But also recognizing that each of you have areas that you can grow, that you can learn, that you can love better, that you can give of yourself. And so that doesn't mean staying the same. It doesn't mean saying, I'm good exactly the way that I am, and I shouldn't have to change anything or do anything, because that kind of mentality is not going to support having the kind of healthy, relationship that you need. You have to both be fully supportive of who that other person is and how God made them, because they are going to be very unique in their personality and their gifts and their desires and their goals and all of that. And so being able to come to the table fully supportive of who they are and how they're geared, but also being able and willing for both of you to say, I'm not perfect, and I have areas where I can grow, and I can learn from you, and we can lean on each other, is so vital,
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes it can be easy to kind of get in that mentality of like, they should just accept me exactly how I am and all of that. And I just feel like that can really be detrimental to the relationship.
Yeah. Well, and it's not healthy. It's not, no one is so great that they don't have areas to improve.
I think that, though, you hear that a lot on social media of just like, you're perfect just the way you are, and just, that person should accept you exactly how you are. And I get this.
It's yes and no. Yeah.
It's yes and no. There's so much nuance when it comes to relationships and it comes to growing as a person. And so I think that's important to remember, that you can be fully loved how you are, but also have a responsibility to show up better for that person.
Right.
And so, it is very nuanced, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that one of the best ways that you can fight for that within your own self and within the unit of marriage is to have healthy boundaries. Prioritizing the relationship sometimes means we're going to set up predetermined like boundaries or parameters for our marriage that help us to fight for each other and help, that we just don't go over, we don't cross those lines. Like, whether that's like, we know that, we're going to have a date night every week, or we know that we're not going to, text the opposite sex, without one another on the text, or, ride in a car, or like there's a lot of things that you can do that are just sort of like, this is just how it is.
Yeah, I do think it's important to have boundaries in a relationship, but those need to be things that you can agree on together beforehand, so that you're both on the same page and you know how to honor each other well.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And that was one other thing I want to talk about today, is the importance of counseling.
Yes.
Because I think that counseling and therapy has such a stigma. And even I would say before we ever did any counseling, that was something that I was really nervous about too, because I thought like, well, doesn't that mean like your marriage is in crisis? And, what are people going to think about you if you say that you do counseling or you have a therapist or that kind of thing? But we went through some really difficult seasons where I was super sick and we were having miscarriages, and there was a lot of relational trauma with some, family and friends, and we were really struggling and having a really hard time. And I think that was that through the church. I think that they recommended. They had a counselor that they pointed us to. And it was one of the best things that we've ever done, because having that outside perspective, there's a lot of times if you're just struggling, say you're grieving or you are just in a lot of emotional pain, even if you're not going at difficult things with different perspectives, it can be hard to kind of line up and get on the same page. And so I think that is so key, to be able to have an outside voice, especially if you're going through difficult things. Like going through those miscarriages was debilitating for me.
Yeah.
That was so difficult. And it was one of the first times where I had gone through something where I didn't feel like I had what I needed to process through it and be able to move on. Like I was stuck. I just felt stuck. And I think you were looking at that and thinking like, I don't know how to help her. I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this moment. And I knew that you wanted to be there for me, but I didn't even know how I needed you to be there for me.
Well, and for me, the thing that counseling has helped with is that I have this personality type that tends to believe that like, I'm good. Like I didn't, you know, it impacted me, but really not that much, you know, like I'll shove my emotions down and kind of act like everything's nice, fine and dandy. And then like they have to go somewhere, you know? And so like your feelings, your emotions, they have to go somewhere. So for me, they would just get pushed down until, you know, they explode at some point. So counseling has really helped us, particularly in the area of conflict, because we're married and we're humans and we're imperfect and all of that. So there's going to be conflict, as with every marriage. It is very good to have someone who's a third party to help navigate some of that.
Particularly the communication, because I think a lot of times we are saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Or at least valuing the same, you know, principles.
Yes.
And we're saying it in different ways, and we can't really hear each other well. And so with the counselor, they were able to help us better understand where we're coming from and what we're saying, and how really what we're saying and what we value is the same thing.
Yeah,
it
one
just
of the
can
things
look very different.
One of the things she said, one of our counselors said, is like, you're both standing in a room, but you're blindfolded, and you're both touching an elephant, but you're touching different parts of the elephant. Like one of you may be touching the ear, and the other may be touching the tail, and you're supposed to try to describe. And you're both saying you're describing an elephant, but you're hearing the other person describing this thing that you're touching that sounds nothing like what you're touching, and yet you're describing the same thing. And that sometimes that's how we come in at life, and we're both perceiving our experiences so differently through our own lenses of past and trauma and personality and culture and family stuff and whatever. Right. And so to have someone who can kind of help you to see both perspectives are vital and valid, and to come onto the same page, that's been a huge blessing for us, a huge game changer for our marriage. Not just in the fights, not just in the, conflict or whatever, but like also just helping us to have some tools, right? That whenever we do come up to something, and I'm recognizing that maybe you don't hear me saying what I feel like I'm saying, and vice versa, we can kind of take a step back and
having empathy for each other too, because at various times we're going to go through different things, or we're going to struggle, or we're going to have emotional stuff that we're dealing with, whether that's current or that's stuff from our past, because we've found that a lot of times our childhood impacts us so much more than we really realize. And there's things that you might be triggered by, or that might be difficult for you as an adult, and you don't even really understand why that is a thing. And a lot of times it goes back to your childhood. It goes back to something you've been through, or the way that you were raised, or relational issues that happened when you were younger. And so often that can impact how you operate as an adult. Yeah. And so being able to have empathy for each other in our differences and in our difficult times is so vital. And so that is one of the things that I think has come out of counseling and therapy that has been the greatest blessing, is that it has really kind of helped us to really see each other in a different way, which can be a challenge when you've been married for a long time. We're coming up on 20 years. And so you think the person. You're like, oh, I know how you work, and I know what you're thinking, And a lot of times that's not true. And you really you do need more empathy and more understanding, and be able to hear each other better, be able to connect and support each other better.
Right. So it's kind of like when you go home for the holidays and you're like mid-30s and you've changed so much from the time you were 5, but then somehow like your grandparents still kind of see you as the 5-year-old kid, you know,
your extended
or
relatives,
whatever.
or yeah.
It's like the longer you're married, the more you kind of have that like viewpoint of each other. It's like, oh yeah, you're the same person that I knew back, you know, we're high school sweethearts. So like we've got a lot of history together. So unless we're literally grew up together. Yeah. So unless we're just like super, super intentional about getting to know the person we're married to now, right? Because you're very different than you were even a year ago. I'm very different than I was even a year ago.
Yeah.
And so that story is not static. Like it's constantly changing, and who we are is constantly changing. And so I want to make sure that I know the real you, who you really are. And I want you to know the real me. So that's why prioritizing in the relationship is so important, because otherwise, you know, we talked about this when we had Andrew and Shawn on, you know, you get to a point where the kids move out and you're looking at each other and you don't even know each other anymore. And that's, you know, I know so many friends who they get divorced after their kids will move out, and their kids are like, what the heck, man? Like, you know, or that was my generation. Like a lot of my friends' parents got divorced, you know?
Right. And you don't want to just stay together for the kids. And that's something that I think that does take so much intentionality, that throughout the years you're investing in that relationship, and you're making sure that y'all guys are, you know, staying close, because I feel like it is so easy to drift apart because life's so crazy. And so that's something that we actively talk about on a regular basis, is how do we stay connected, and how do we stay friends, and how do we stay feeling like we're on the same team with the same goals, doing the same things, even though we're different people. And we have, you know, different priorities sometimes, and different hobbies, and like that's good too. But you know, you want to make sure that you're staying connected throughout all of that.
And doing it regularly, consistently. I think one of the craziest things, and we've both done this before, you know, one of the biggest things I could suggest is keep short accounts. You know, don't let things just drag out. And that's where I think counseling has really helped us, because I think when we first started doing counseling, it was interesting how many times we would have something where we were like, well, 10 years ago when you did this, this, and this, you know, and it's like, wow, like, and I would do that, you know, I, the guy who, oh, that didn't bug me, that didn't mess with me at all. You know, I'm going, well, you know, there was that time 10 years ago that you did this, this, and this. And it's like, really, bro? Like,
but the thing that she was talking about is how there is surface level stuff, and then there's basement stuff. So a lot of times the things that bother you that are surface level, what you see and what you're talking about, there's actually some deeper level stuff that is actually informing that. And so when it seems like you have this reaction that is disproportional to whatever happened, you know, something was said or some little thing happened, right? But it makes you feel like you're triggered. That's not really the issue. The issue is the thing down below. It's that, you know, you feel like you're not communicating well, or there's trust issues, or there's something else going on. And those basement level issues are the things that you are actually needing to address and talk through, because it does flush itself out. Even if you feel like, you know, oh, I don't want to talk about this, or I don't need to talk about this, it's going to come out in little ways that are going to get to you. And so that is one of the big things I think that therapy has also shown is like, if you are able to kind of get down to the root cause, why does that bother you, or why does that hurt you? Then you can start to resolve those issues and actually have a healthier, closer relationship.
So as much as we say date night, schedule it, you know, massage, schedule it, whatever, I would say therapy and marriage counseling, we schedule that. I mean, it's every other week, every other week. It's on the calendar. Unless something crazy is going on, that's going to happen, you know? And that just continues to give us a framework to communicate. There will be things whenever we get into therapy when she'll be like, how's your week been? And initially, you know, we're both like, you know, it's been really good.
Pretty good, yeah.
You know, it's been good. And then she'll start asking some questions. We're like, oh, yeah, there was that. And, that's just such good, like, regularly scheduled maintenance.
Right, exactly.
That's
what it is that you don't have to be in crisis to have counseling because, especially if you are opposites, but just in general, marriage is hard. And so having that kind of framework to be able to communicate well and hear each other better.
And as an avoider who doesn't want to stir the pot, because if we've already fought about something, by all means, I don't want to fight about it again, so I'm not going to, but
you don't, it's like you would rather just say, oh, it's fine. It's cool. And not resolve things or not talk through things. And that's really bad too.
That's really bad too.
It's going to eventually come back up.
And we've seen that happen in our life, where that kind of does come back to haunt. And it's worse because the ghost of Christmas past is always worse than the ghost of Christmas future.
Yeah. And it's like, I wish we would have like actually just addressed this back then when we were both struggling with something, So,
yeah. So I would say those are our big things. Just schedule in. Prioritize. You make time for what matters to you. It's just like if we're talking sex, you make time for sex, and like sometimes I don't know what that.
You okay there?
I don't know where we're going here, but anyway, date night. You make time for date night. You make time to eat. Like you start to get hangry when you don't eat. And it's the same, like you start to get hangry as like your marriage is hungry. You're relationally hungry, and when you don't feed your need, it's not good, so schedule it. And then also it's kind of like when you have you have a system and you have a process and you have all these things in place, it can just kind of become fun.
Kind of fun.
Yeah. I just mean like it's not going to feel like a task.
Yeah.
I will say though, and this maybe we need to close with this and we'll move on and we'll do our beautiful people segment. But the getting away thing, we were talking about this on the way over here. It's never convenient. Like when you have kids at home and you're doing life and you got all kinds of stuff, you can be looking forward to something for months and months and months. And without fail, you're getting ready to leave and something falls apart and you've got to feel like you got to manage it or fix it or whatever. And you're tempted in that moment to like cancel the getaway or whatever. Like this has happened to us the last 3 times that we've had something scheduled, just you and me. And we get to the point and it's like, like we just had to stay up all night the night before working on something, or something's falling apart with one of there's something and we make a commitment and say no, we're gonna do this. And I have never not been glad that we made the sacrifice to just say like, either we're gonna take care of it now as much as we can and then do the rest when we get back or whatever. But the investment of time and the sacrifice is always worth it.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So that's what I would say. Make time. Selflessly love one another with their love language. They'll be doing the same thing for you, theoretically, ideally. And, just as you do that, you become the better version of yourself, and then the marriage gets healthier. So I think hopefully this is helpful,
I get a little worried sometimes, like talking through this stuff, because I would never want people to think like we feel like we've got it figured out, because I think till the day you die, you're going to be working on your marriage. You're going to be learning about each other more. You're going to be figuring out how to love each other better. And so I know we have a long ways to go, but 19 years is
we get it wrong a lot.
You learn by getting it wrong.
I get it wrong a lot.
Not you, but in general, people do.
Well, I do. I mean, I hopefully do.
Yeah.
And I read this whole book right here. Speaking of, if you haven't got The Art of Getting It Wrong, it's now almost a month old. Well, it's when you're hearing this, it'll be a month old. And it's kind of all the ways that there's a lot of stories in there about our marriage and ways that I got it wrong in our marriage, and the things that allowed me to confront my own insecurities, my own, lack of self-worth and blind spots and things like that, so that I could become a better version of me and love you better and love our kids better. And so hopefully you'll pick up a copy of that book and it'll encourage you as well. It's a pretty funny book. I think you're going to laugh because I'm such an idiot. We almost called it Cautionary Tales of My Stupidity was the original working title.
Another one, though, that you almost called it was It's Going to Be Okay, which is another big theme of that. And a big theme I think that we want our platform to be about is that regardless of what you've been through or whether you screwed it up or somebody else has screwed it up for you or you're just going through a lot of difficult things, sometimes life is just hard. And at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. It doesn't mean that it's not hard. It doesn't mean that there's not a lot of pain. But that you're going to be okay at the end of the day.
I think that, in a nutshell, is the best way to have a healthy marriage and to prioritize your marriage is to forgive one another and forgive yourself and have grace for each other, because we all know that we all mess up a lot.
It's part of being human.
And when you can let go and release that, you don't have to have the bitterness that kind of festers in there, really poisoning your marriage. You know, and I think that's been our biggest secret, is that we really do try to be the chief forgiveness officers of our home and to forgive one another when we mess up, you know, to try to have empathy and compassion for each other and let the forgiveness wash over our relationship.
And let the kids see that too. Like, mom and dad forgive each other and don't hold grudges, because that's something that our kids need to see as well. We need that for ourselves. And then we want our kids to be able to see that too, that to have a healthy relationship, you do have to forgive each other, because there are going to be times where, whether it's something small, like they said this, or that really hurt, or it's something bigger, like, well, they really got off on this thing or whatever. There's some sort of, issue. It's okay to, it's not only okay, but it's so vital to be able to model that for our kids.
Absolutely. So speaking of relationships, we have a beautiful people segment that we try to do every week. And we found this really pretty sweet Instagram. I don't know what I'm saying. I think I just saw an email. It's a reel on Instagram, all the way at the bottom here. Chris and Maddie. So Maddie was a marathon runner, and Chris was like her biggest fan, biggest cheerleader, like trying to help her all along the way as she was getting ready to run this marathon. We're going to link this video, but he gets down on one knee at the finish line of the marathon with a ring, and that's what she hits the finish line and is getting proposed to.
Yeah.
That is epic.
Pretty incredible.
That's amazing. Yeah. Like, so romantic. And we were joking because we're like, I don't know, man. We're watching the video. I'm like, she didn't look like she just ran 26.2 miles.
Yeah. She's clearly in really good shape.
Because I would be incredible. Like, coming to the finish line, and maybe the last thing I would want is to have somebody. Like, I'd be like,
She's clearly been training for a long
good to go.
Time.
So
it was one of the sweetest things I've ever seen.
It was so fun. So check the show notes for that video, and it's a lot of fun. But thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. Make sure you subscribe to the Family Made Media on YouTube, where you're probably watching this, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever, make sure you subscribe to What's Up Beautiful People. And we're excited about what's to come. We've got some really good guests coming up. We're really pumped about that. Yep. Got a couple more with us. I think we're going to interview Reese, our oldest daughter, about what it looks like to move out and be out on her own at 18.
Was one of the things. She watches all of our podcasts, and she's so sweet and so encouraging, but she said,
I want to be on your podcast.
Yeah, I think it was after the first one we came back. And we were like, okay, we filmed our first one. She's like, I want to be a guest.
Yeah, so I think we're going to do that. Maybe bring out some of the other kids as well.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you subscribe, and we can't wait to see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.